Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This is Jasra and you're watching Communication Skills first lecture. First of all, we will try to tell you that what are we going to study today in this particular lecture. In the beginning, we will try to understand what exactly is communication. Then, what are the types of communication? What are the communication styles? What exactly is effective communication? Not just communication. What is effective communication? And then we will talk about the 4 skills in communication, and at the end we will certainly talk about the application of the famous 7 C's in communication. Well, before we move forward, we have a warm-up activity for you so that you can understand what exactly is the importance of effective communication or just even communication. Now, on Facebook, for example, you see a post and it is written, "We are excited for the big event on Sunday. Don't miss it." Now read it again. "We are excited for the big event on Sunday. Don't miss it." Now, when you read this particular post on Facebook, we have certain questions, and through those questions, we will try to understand that what is the impact of a post which does not clearly mention all the information. Now, the first question arises from this post, that what kind of confusion could arise from this particular social media post. Of course, when you read the words of this post, you definitely do not get the whole of the message from this post. The question number 2 arises, how would you seek additional information to understand the event details? I mean, it talks about event, but it doesn't tell us what exactly is the event. Now, from where you could get all the details? Because without those details, it doesn't really attract everybody. Of course, we want to know what are the details of this event, what kind of this event is. Because without knowing, how can we be excited for this event? And then the third question arises, what are the possible consequences for the company? I mean, the company that is posting this post, or the organization that is posting this post, to attract the audience if the post remains unclear. So this is just a warm-up activity for you to think yourself. Maybe you can pause the lecture and start thinking, what are the answers to these questions? And of course, after you answer these questions, you will come to know that this is very important for all of us to have a complete information, a proper communication when we are trying to tell others what we want to exactly say. Now, before we move forward, we have 2 particular examples to tell you that what exactly is the importance of communication in our lives. Now, there is a famous Frederick experiment. There was a king. In fact, he wanted to know that what is the importance of communication in humans' life. I mean, we all want to do certain things. We all want to know about different things. So that king wanted to know that what is the importance of communication in our lives. Now, we all know that if somebody asks a question from you, that what is the most important thing in your life if you want to live? So 100 out of 100 would respond that we need water, we need air, we need some food to survive. But this experiment is absolutely different. That Frederick king, he isolated some newly born infants from the rest of the people, and it was quite a cruel experiment, of course, but this was an experiment. So he separated those babies, infants, from the humans, and they could not hear a single voice of any person, any human body for some considerable time. And you know what happened? After some time, this is very unfortunate that those babies died. I mean, they were provided food. Definitely they were provided food, but due to lack of communication, there was no communication, those kids died. I know that some of you might be thinking that how is it possible? But we have heard the stories of such prisoners who were put into jail, and there was kind of punishment for them that nobody could talk to them. They were not able to listen to others, and they had strong psychological issues with them. Of course, a mature person could live longer, but in case of babies, when they couldn't hear a single voice for some considerable time, those babies died. So you can imagine the importance of communication with this example. Now we have one more example which is quite famous. That is the Tower of Babel. And we will try to understand from this example what is the communication breakdown and what exactly is the impact of that. Now, in some past, some people wanted to build a tower which is called Tower of Babel basically, and they wanted to build a sort of ladder or tower from the earth to sky. I mean, humans always want to do something very different. Now, this was quite, I would say, a passionate experiment. So, initially, they started building that particular tower, and of course, we have no idea that at what height it went. But they kept going, and they had some communication, of course. But with the passage of time, they had lesser communication, of course, because if the building is so high, we have seen here in this world as well that it becomes very difficult for the people to have communication. Of course, in the latest technology, we have wirelesses and all that stuff. But of course, if we talk about those days, which is quite ancient past, there must have been no communication tools. So ultimately, there came a time when the communication started breaking down. Okay, it was quite even in today's world, we can expect that at certain time, for example, take an example of signals, mobile signals. I mean, if you are away from the tower, you have lesser signals, and then you move away again further, then there will be time that when you will have no signals at all, and you won't be able to communicate with the people. And you must have experienced nowadays situation in Pakistan, and sometimes we have no signals, no internet, and it becomes very difficult for the people to communicate to each other, and lots of problems occur. So importance of communication can also be understood from the recent example that when there is a sort of lockdown, and then when there is no signals and no internet, the life becomes difficult for us. Anyhow, we were talking about the Tower of Babel. So at one time, the communication became difficult, and the Tower of Babel, it basically fell down. So imagine these are very unique kind of example that I have given to you, so that you can understand what is the importance of proper communication in our lives. Fine. Now we will move forward, and we will keep on talking about what is communication, what is effective communication, and how we can make our communication more effective. The whole lecture is about this. So there might be some points which will be repeated. So you should not panic about it. So what is the importance of effective communication? The number one most important thing is that if we want to build understandings between different people, and we want to build relationships between people, definitely you will have to communicate. I mean, without communication, how can you build relationships? How can you build friendships with people? How can you talk to others? There is no way, of course. Of course, we will talk about what are the communication types and what are the communication styles. There can be different. I mean, it's not like that you always contact through your mobile, or you talk to somebody who's sitting before you. There are different types. But whatever, you will have to have communication if you want to build confidence between the relationships and understand others. So this is the first important point for the importance of effective communication. The second point, if you want to have influence on others, if you want to build trust with others, you have to communicate. Imagine a person who does not talk to others. Imagine a person who does not communicate with others. He doesn't adopt any kind of communication. So do you really think that he has got some influence over others? He will have to have some kind of communication with others if he really wants to have influence on others. We build trust because we communicate with each other. So it's very important that if you want to have influence or if you want to build trust, you will have to have effective communication with other people. Then comes the self-perception. If we want to know about ourselves, if we want to build up our self-image and self-perception, even then we have to communicate. When I talk, if I give my own example, when I communicate with different people, I come to know about myself as well. Okay, fine, I can give you a current example. While I am delivering a lecture, this might be my first time that I am facing camera and I'm speaking live on camera. This is a kind of communication right now that I am doing. Now I came to know that, okay, fine, I can do this as well. And how is it different? How this type of communication is different from the other types of communication that I had already. At my YouTube channel, I have a YouTube channel where I do not show my face on camera, but I hide my face behind the slides, the PowerPoint slides. That was a different kind of communication. But when I had to face the camera and I had to talk to you people like this, I had different experience. And definitely now, because of this kind of communication, I can have my own self-perception as well, and I can understand my image as well. Now, what are two very important skills for effective communication? It is important to know, of course, and we will, as I said earlier, that we will keep talking about what is communication and what is effective communication and how can we have effective communication. We'll keep talking about that. But this is a very minor thing that I am going to tell you, that what are the skills, two very basic and very important skills. Number one is called flexibility and number two is called responsibility. You need to have a flexible personality, flexible communication style so that you can have effective communication. You can't say that, okay, fine, I speak like this to everybody. You can't say that. A person has different roles in his society. A person at home, for example, if you take my example, so I am a father, I am a husband, I am a son, I am a brother, I am a friend, I am a colleague, I am a student, I am a traveler. Fine. So I have different roles in my life. I can't be the same every time. I can't communicate every time in the same way, in the same manner. I got to have flexibility so that my communication becomes effective communication. Imagine if I am talking to my students like a father, I don't think it will be effective. Imagine if I'm talking to my friends as I talk to my father. It's not possible. We will have to have flexible communication style. And the other one is responsibility. Now I will explain this point, of course, in the coming lecture as well. In the later part of this lecture. But here I would say that if you are communicating with others, you need to be responsible. It's a very broad term that what does responsibility means when we are talking about communication. But in a simple manner, I can say that you need to be very cautious that you are talking to people, so that you need to think before you speak. Now, think before you speak means that you need to understand that who is your audience, what are the people, what is their level. So that's why I need to be very responsible. So I can't talk without knowing my audience. I can't talk without knowing the setting and the environment. So that was about what is the importance of effective communication in a very little way, and we will explain it further as well. Now, communication as a manager's key skill. Now, the word manager is not important. You can put, for example, it can be any person. It can be a teacher. It can be a boss. It can be anybody who is practicing communication. So why communication is a key skill for a teacher, for a manager, for a person, for a father, for anybody who heads a family, for example. So we will try to understand. Number one, if you want teams success. I mean, the word team means when you're talking about a manager or a boss. But if I'm talking about a teacher, then I would say that the organization's success, the institute's success, or I can say the class that I'm teaching, I will talk about the success of that. So it is very important, if you really want to see your team, see your class, see your family, whatever you're heading, in fact, if you want to see them successful, then you will have to have a very nice communication skills. Without good communication skills, you cannot see your success. Let's think about a political party. For example, if the political party's head or the chairman or whatever the name of that head of the party is, if he has good communication skills, his party would succeed in that politics. In the current era, we have certain examples from Pakistan, from other, we have a very famous, presidential debate in Americans' elections. So if you want to see your party, your team, your class, your family successful, then you will have to present very good communication skills. Then if you want to inculcate your vision into your team, into your class, into your family, into your nation, into your political workers, whoever it is. So vision, the transfer of your vision from your words to other people, then definitely you will have to have a very nice communication skills. Achha, one question that comes in my mind, that majority of the people might be thinking right now while watching or listening to my voice, that communication is all about speaking. So no, it's not all about speaking. Definitely we will explain it further. So please do not think that communication is all about speaking. Of course, we can have certain other ways. One of the very important ways is, of course, writing. So you can think about all those things and keep, taking example from both, speaking and writing and other types of communication. Fine. The motivation. If you want to motivate others, even if you want to motivate yourself, it is very important to have effective communication. Now, it is easy to understand that if we want to motivate others, then definitely we will have to have communication. But if you want to motivate yourself, then what kind of communication is required? I will explain it later. But of course, you understand that in order to motivate your students, your political workers, your family members, your colleagues, your team members, whoever they are, you will have to display a very good communication skill. Fine. Okay, now what are the payoffs if you have good communication and effective skills? That is, okay, what are the benefits? Number one is your professional image. If I am a teacher, because I am a teacher, I will give the example of a teacher. Now, I have a class of 50 students, say, or 60 students. If I display good communication skills, then my professional image will grow. Not only among my students, but among my colleagues, in the whole organization, and the other, at other places as well. So in order to have good professional image, you got to have good effective communication. Number two, self-confidence. There are a lot of people who say that I do not have a good confidence to speak, because I am a spoken English teacher as well. So lots of people come to me and they say that, sir, we can understand English, we can write in English, but the problem is that we can't speak. So the problem comes from their confidence as well. Now, if you have a good communication skills, and again, good communication skill doesn't mean that you can speak in English. Any language, it can be your own mother tongue. I'm a Saraiki speaker, and if I can speak Saraiki with confidence with others, that means I have good communication skills. It's not important to speak in English or Urdu in order to be called as somebody who has good communication skills. So mind it. So it's not important. So in order to have self-confidence, you got to communicate and communicate effectively. And one more point that's coming into my mind right now, that sometimes people think that communication skills is not something that is learned. Remember, Whenever you have a word skill, you got to learn it. Yes, there are people who are God gifted, but even God gifted people have to practice that skill. For example, somebody has got good voice. I mean, he can sing well, for example. Take an example that he can sing well. So do you think that without practicing singing, he can be a good singer? No. Even if he is God gifted, even then he will have to learn the basics of music, learn the basics of, singing. And then he will have to practice it in front of a lot larger audience. Only then he can become a good communicator and he can display his God gifted skill in a better way. So self-confidence, of course, when you have good communication skill, you get your self-confidence. Personally talking, when I didn't have this experience of talking in front of camera, I might have thought that it is gonna be something difficult for me. But when I started talking to camera, it becomes very easy. Now I am more confident than others because this was one experience that was that I didn't experience in my life, and now I have experience of it. So I'm more confident than earlier, of course. The third thing is relationships. As I already said before, and I will explain it further, that if you want to build relationships, one type of relationship is that right now I'm talking to my students. This is a kind of relationship. Now you're watching my lecture, you're listening to my voice, and I'm sure if you are liking it, then definitely there is a kind of relationship that we are building, that I am building with you. And of course, in other circumstances, if we have good communication skills, we build more better relationships. Again, imagine a political leader having good communication skills. He has strong relationship with his political workers because he has got good communication. You will see not a single political leader who has got bad communication skills and the people, they have a strong relationship. So it's very important to have strong relationship. If you want to have strong relationships, you got to have good communication skills. Then it is very interesting to know that good communication skills is basically stress reduction. That means that if you are very stressful in such a situation, that can be any situation, if you are very stressed, then communication can help you. Now how? We all experience that sometimes you say that, can you please talk to me? I'm not feeling well. I want to talk to somebody. So that kind of communication, basically you are doing stress reduction. So it has got biological effect on our personality. This is very important. Imagine a person who is stressed, who is sad, and he does not have any person to talk with. Imagine the level of stress he has. But there is a person who has got people around him who can listen to him and who can talk to him. So if the communication flow is better, you can easily get rid of that stress as well. And last but not least, of course, acceptance. Now acceptance is kind of professional image, but acceptance means social acceptance. People start accepting you. People start, they want to talk to you. They start believing in you. They start accepting your views because you have got good communication skills. I mean, it is very interesting that there are people who have very good views. They are very logical in their views, but overall they do not have very good communication skills, and unfortunately their social acceptance is not that good. But on the other side, there are people whose views are not that great. They have got a relatively weaker views. Their communication skill, but their communication skills is better, so they have more acceptance. So it was all about how communication can play a role in a manager or in a teacher or in a head of family's role. Now we will talk about a very important part of our lecture, which is communication rights and responsibilities. We all talk about rights in our life. Whatever the movement we see, they talk about rights. We have Human Rights Commission, we have feminist who talks about female rights, I don't see a lot of male rights, but of course I see a lot of female rights organizations and all that stuff. But we never heard about any organization or any association which talks about the responsibilities. It is very important to know when you have rights, you must have responsibilities as well. You are expecting from others, that is your rights. But what others are expecting from you is your responsibility. Now, what are the rights? Communication rights. Communication does have rights. We think that we have rights to have, to food, or rights to travel, and rights to other things. But did you ever think that communication does have rights and responsibilities? Now, what are the rights? Number one is be respected. This is your first right. People should respect you in a way that when somebody is speaking, the people should listen to you carefully. That is a kind of respect. I would definitely give the example of our holy prophet, peace be upon him, Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that one of the very most beautiful habits or personality traits, you can say, of Prophet peace be upon him was that he used to listen to other very carefully. And I heard it from, and I watched a lecture of one of the religious scholar. He was explaining it practically, that how would Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam listen to others. So imagine that if somebody is sitting right to the Prophet, and he likes to talk to Prophet, so the Prophet used to move his whole body to the person and used to talk like this, rather than he's looking here and the person sitting right, and you say, okay, fine, talk to me. No, not like that. So it is your right to be respected, means that when you're speaking, the person should listen to you carefully. Then your opinion expressed means that your opinion must be expressed. You should be able to express your opinion, whatever you think. I mean, the people can have certain, you can say that they can have differences. They may consider your opinion as wrong. Fine, that's not a problem. But at least you have the right to express your opinion. You must, the society, the people around you must allow you to express your opinion. And you can ask what you need. I mean, I have different needs in my life, from food needs to other needs. I have a lot of needs on daily basis. So this is my right, that with the communication, even if I can't speak, I may be able to write, or I may be able to have, express some gestures. So I have the right to ask what I need. And then you can set limits. Very interesting. I mean, this is your right, that when you are speaking, or when you are communicating, you set the limits. For example, in my case, I usually, when I am trying to say something, I request everybody to please listen to me carefully and let me complete. Now, what is this? Listen to me carefully, let me complete. Nobody would talk during when I am speaking. These are what? These are limits that I am setting for the people, for the audience. So yes, you can set the limits. I mean, imagine if there is a criminal procedure going on in the court, and a judge is sitting there, and a criminal comes and he wants to have his opinion, or he wants to say something. He definitely can say that, Judge Sahab, before I finish, please do not interrupt me. I know this, it doesn't happen practically in our society, but he definitely can set limits. Now we talk about the responsibilities. So interestingly, all your rights are your responsibilities as well. I mean, when you want to be respected, you should respect others. When you want your opinion be expressed, then definitely you would also respect the opinion of others. Now, if you can ask what you need, then definitely the others can ask as well, and you need to address their needs. And When you want to set limits for others, definitely you will have to respect the boundaries, the limits others set for you. I mean, I have seen in my life that there are people who want others to listen to them carefully, but when they are speaking, when the others are speaking, they do not listen to them carefully. This is very bad. I mean, if you expect from others to listen to you carefully, then definitely you should listen to them as well in a very careful manner. So these were communication rights and responsibility. Now we have an activity, and this activity you will do it yourself, but I will explain the scenario and I won't read the questions from here. You will have to read it yourself and do the activity. Now what exactly is the scenario? Imagine you are working in an environment, maybe you are a student, for example, and you have say 50 class fellows. Or you are a person who is doing a job and you are in a kind of organization. So both, you can think about the both scenarios, fine. So as a student, you have some students who are very open to communication and they are open to talk to you, they are very communicative. But then there are other students as well who are very reserved. They do not speak a lot, they do not communicate, they don't want to communicate so often. Now, how will you deal with those people? How will you be able to make friendship or make relationship with the both kind of people? Because they are different. One group is a group of people is which is very open to communication, and other group of people maybe they are very reserved. So how can you apply effective communication techniques to build your relationship with those people? And of course you will have to answer these both questions, and this is a kind of activity. If you do it yourself, of course it will enhance your knowledge. Now we move towards what are the types of communication. Of course it is very important to know, because initially in the beginning part of my lecture I talked about that the communication is not just speaking. There can be different types of communication. We need to understand that. The first is called intrapersonal communication. Now what is intrapersonal communication? Basically intrapersonal and interpersonal, people usually confused. So you need to be very careful to understand it. What is intrapersonal is something that you talk to yourself. I mean, we all talk to ourselves. Some people know it very well. They are aware of this fact. Maybe some people who are listening to me and watching my lecture, they are not sure about it. So I will explain that how we talk to ourselves. Now basically we can say that we talk to our brain. So something communication that is happening within our brain. We are not talking to somebody else. We are talking to ourselves. And it is not something that you are openly talking to yourself, and people are listening to you. Yes, it also happens, which is in English literature we call it soliloquy. Basically somebody is speaking and others can listen to his voice as well, but basically he is not talking to others, he is talking to basically himself. So that is intrapersonal communication. Now what are the key aspects of this intrapersonal communication? Number one is sense making. Means, for example, you have a map and you want to know, fine, we do not have globes right now in the current era. We have Google Maps. Now imagine you want to go somewhere in the city, and it's very difficult for you to understand the route. So what you will do, that you will open the Google Maps and then you will try to know that, okay, fine, I am sitting here and my targeted place is there. Now you will do it yourself, something like that, okay, fine, I will move from here and then I will reach that market, and from the market I will move right, and from that mosque I will move left, and after that I will have to cross signals, and then I will reach that place. Now what are you doing? This is called intrapersonal communication. You're talking to your own brain basically. You're trying to make sense of something. Then interpreting non-verbal clues. For example, you right now you are watching me and I am having eye contact with you, so you are trying to understand what he wants to say through his eye contact. Okay, this might not be a very good example. Now imagine that there is a person, okay fine, you are sitting in a bus and somebody just near to you is looking at you. Now when he is looking at you, you will try to understand, why is he looking at me? What does he want to say? Now what is this kind of communication? You're not asking from him. You're just thinking. You're just trying to know that why is he looking at me? And then there might be something, for example, somebody is having a particular gestures and you're looking at him, you will try to understand that what kind of gesture it is. So all this basically, and of course, which is called internal body communication. When you are hungry, for example, your body talks to you and you talk to your body, that you feel that, okay, I'm feeling hungry. So when you are feeling hungry, your bowel movements, they can tell you that you are hungry. So basically that is a kind of communication which is called intrapersonal communication. Now we move towards interpersonal communication. Now I stress on inter because I want you to understand it clearly that it's not intra, it is now interpersonal communication. Now what is interpersonal communication? Interpersonal communication is minimum when you talk from one person to other person. I mean, it is a kind of conversation which is between at least two individuals, or it can be a person who is talking to a group. So there is another kind of communication which is coming, type of communication which is called small group communication. There is a slight difference between interpersonal and small group, because in interpersonal we have less people, at least two but less people, and in small group we have more people, of course. Fine. So that is interpersonal communication. Now in interpersonal communication, what happens? We are listening, we are talking. Now remember, in intrapersonal communication we were not listening to ourselves basically, because we do not need to listen to ourselves, because we are talking to ourselves. And in majority cases we are not speaking, because our ears do not need to listen to understand what we are thinking about it. But in interpersonal communication, if it is not somebody who is, imagine of course somebody who can't speak, of course, then of course he will use the other alternate gestures for that. That can also be called interpersonal communication, because if I'm talking about somebody who can't speak, fine, so then definitely he will have to use the other alternate gestures. But in interpersonal communication, of course, that as I told you, that there must be at least two people. Fine. So there is listening happening, there is talking happening, and there is a kind of conflict resolution. Now what is conflict resolution basically? By conflict resolution, now whenever we think about the word conflict, we start thinking maybe koi masla hoga, koi kharaba hoga. No, it's not like that. Conflict can be something which is not a masla, in fact, in Urdu as we say. Fine. It can be anything. For example, there is a person who is talking to other and he is trying to understand that where is some particular place located. Let's say, take an example, I am right now in International Islamic University and I want to move to Qaid-e-Azam University, and I would ask from other person that, can you please explain to me that where is Qaid-e-Azam University? Now here is a conflict. What is that conflict? I want to know where is Qaid-e-Azam University. This is a kind of conflict, remember. And when we are having communication, we are trying to resolve this conflict, and that's called conflict resolution, and that happens most of the times in interpersonal communication. Now in as I said earlier, that in interpersonal communication we do have verbal and non-verbal communication as well. So for example, we say that a person is talking, he is of course using his eye contact, he is nodding, fine, and he is using his hand gestures and body gestures. So it all happens. But in intrapersonal communication, we do not need this non-verbal communication. Why? Of course, there might be a question in your mind that why non-verbal communication is not required in intrapersonal communication, because we are not telling anybody else, there is nobody, basically we are talking to ourselves. So I don't need non-verbal communication in order to have effective communication. But in interpersonal communication, if I want to have effective communication, then definitely I must have verbal and non-verbal both communication. Now we move towards the next type, which is called small group communication. Now the word explains itself that it's a small group. So from interpersonal, where only one person is talking to himself, towards interpersonal, where minimum there are two people, we have now small group where we have more than two people. So it can be 3 people or can be 5, 10, something like that, because it's a small group, it's not a larger group, remember. But they are talking, remember, the important thing is that when there is a small group communication, then they all are talking about one thing. Imagine there are 5 friends who are talking about Pakistani cricket team performance. Now Pakistan's cricket team performance is their topic of discussion. So there are 5 friends, they are having their own opinions. They talk about the batting, bowling, and the decisions of the captain and the cricket board's decision, and they are talking about cricket. So that's kind of small group communication. So there can be family discussions and there can be organizational meeting as well. Well, in organizations we usually have larger group, but there can be a smaller group as well. So this is a kind of communication where we have small number of people. Then we move towards public communication. Now in public communication, basically there is a speaker who is talking to a larger audience. Public communication, so you can call it a public speaking as well. The ideal example of public communication is when a political leader is addressing its workers in a kind of jalsa, in a kind of meeting. Fine. So that is an ideal example of public communication. But if you talk about the teacher who is talking to a larger class, for example 60, 50 people, that can also be public communication. But usually public communication is considered that when one person is talking to a very large amount of people. But definitely these examples are, the correct, and you can consider them. So it is, if we talk about the characteristics of public communication, then it is a speaker centered. Yaad rahe, it is speaker centered. What is speaker centered means ke the major role is from the speaker. As I said that a political leader is talking to its say 10,000, 20,000 people, then of course every gesture, every phrase, every speaking term from the speaker would have a great huge effect on the audience. So it is a speaker centered, and it is mostly one-way communication. I mean, how it is one-way communication? Because the audience are listening and the speaker is speaking. So they are kind of passive here. They are listening and the speaker is having everything. But of course, nowadays we see that the people who are listening to a political leader, they also respond. Because there are some political leaders who have a very good effective communication skills, and they keep on asking questions from their audience. So definitely there can be a response from the audience, but it is not compulsory that the communication comes from only speaker. And we can definitely say that it is more specific speaker centered. Now we have mass communication. Now in mass communication, again the number of people is doubled or tripled now, because here we are a small group or a single individual is sending a message to a very, very large amount of people. And important point is that those people or those a large number of audience may well be anonymous. Now what does it mean? Take an example of say TV channel, for example. Now news channels, they deliver news, And when they are delivering news, there are a group of people who are involved to deliver the message. For example, there can be a cameraman, there can be an editor, there can be somebody who is providing the pages where the news are written, and other people who are working on the technical sides of that message. So there are maybe 10 people or 20 people involved, and now those news can be heard all over Pakistan or in the whole world. There can be millions of people watching that news. But there can be one person as well. For example, imagine a head of state or prime minister of a country. He is addressing the nation. Now, he is one person who is addressing the nation. Now, nowadays we have very famous YouTube vlogs. So there is a person who is delivering some news. He is the only person who is setting his own camera, everything, and there is nobody assisting him. So there can be one person as well who is talking to millions of people. So this is called mass communication. Now we have non-verbal communication. We have talked a lot about non-verbal communication, but we can explain it further as well. So we all know that non-verbal is something where we do not use words for spoken or even written or anything like that. Is called non-verbal communication. It is, in my opinion and in many others communication skills experts' opinion, non-verbal is more important than the verbal. Why is it so? Because if for seconds, just look at me and I have stopped moving my eyes and I've stopped moving my hands, so it is quite awkward. Now when I start making my verbal communication more effective, my body gesture, my eye contact, then you can understand me in a much better way. So yes, non-verbal communication is very important. So what are the key elements in non-verbal communication? Our facial expressions. As sometimes you can see in my lecture that I smile a bit, or majority of the lecture I have been serious. So yeah, it happens. Your facial expressions are very important in your non-verbal communication. Then we have other gestures like hand gestures, like the shoulders, the nodding, the body posture as well. Now what is body posture? It's very important. I mean, somebody is watching this lecture. If you want to improve your communication, then you must know that your body posture is very important. For example, imagine my body posture is like this, that I'm straight, standing straight, and you're watching me. Now my body structure can be like this as well, something like that. Now this looks awkward, or maybe I'm sitting like this or something like this. So imagine my body posture is so important. Now, right now, my body posture is so commanding. You can listen to me more carefully now. So your communication, your body posture is very important. Of course, use of space. It is very interesting. That use of space. So now what is use of space? In my opinion, it is very important. I have seen some people who, when they want to talk to you, they will come so close to you that you will say that, why is he coming so close to me? So yeah, if somebody wants to talk to me and at a very fair distance he is trying to talk to me, I feel personally very comfortable. Now to be honest, use of space has got multiple explanations, and I won't be able to explain all that because for example, if you want to show your more concern to other person who is listening to you, and if you want to build kind of relationship with that person, space does matter. For example, if there is a person who wants to talk to you and he is sitting some 10 feet away from you, the impact of his communication will be different to the person who is standing only 1 feet away from you. So use of space does give you a message that what does this person wants to say. Now what is the importance? Of course, it builds confidence. Ask from me that if I have a good body posture, if I have good eye contact, if I have proper usage of my hand gestures and nodding and all that stuff, I feel more confident. So it is very important. The second thing is demonstrate power. What is demonstrating power? The way I am talking to you right now, it demonstrates my power of being a teacher. If my body gestures and non-verbal communication is weak, then I won't be able to demonstrate my power. So it also expresses sincerity. Very important. Imagine if I'm teaching something like that. I'm sitting here and I'm talking like this and like this. It does not show that I'm very much concerned. But when I'm talking to you right now and exactly watching at your face, then it shows that I'm very sincere and I'm very dedicated about my teaching, and I want to make things understand for you. I want to make things easier for you. So it shows your sincerity as well. I will explain it further. Imagine there is a person who is talking to you and he is talking something like this. And then there is a person who is talking to something like that, listening to you. So it does show sincerity, of course. Then we have building trust, which is connected with your sincerity. If you will listen to other person with looking at him, looking into his eyes, that builds your trust as well. Usually we have people who are telling us lies, they won't be able to look at our face. So it definitely builds our trust as well. Then we can recognize and manage tension. Yeah, of course. As I said earlier, that communication is something which can be used in stress reduction. People say that I want to take a medicine, I want to take pills or tablet to reduce my tension, but without taking pills and without taking those tablets, if we have good friends, for example, we have good life partner, for example, and if we can talk to those people, we can reduce our trust. The same goes here, that non-verbal communication, basically it manages our tension as well. Then we can align our verbal with non-verbal communication. Now what does this means? That if I am trying to explain something and my words are aligned or parallel with my gestures, with my non-verbal communication, then it becomes easy for me to explain my message. Now, if you can revise it, if you can just go 10 seconds back and watch how my message is aligned and parallel with my body gestures, then you will come to know that what is the importance of aligning the message with our verbal and non-verbal communication. Now I have a home-based activity for you, because I want that you all keep doing activities. Without doing activity, you won't be able to understand it clearly. So there are 3 scenarios for you, and what you will do is that you will have to understand all the scenarios, and then you will have to tell that what type of communication is referred in that particular scenario. So you can read, for example, I can read the first scenario for you, that there is a person who is reviewing a map silently and understanding the directions. So what type of communication is involved in it? We have just explained it. So these 3 scenarios basically talks about 3 of the communication types that we have just discussed. So this is a kind of activity for you, and I hope that you will do it. Okay, so now we are going to talk about the different communication styles. Before we talked about the types of communication, but now we will talk about what are different communication styles. I mean, we all cannot have the same style of communication. So there are at least 4 communication styles that we will talk about. The number 1 is passive communication style. The number 2 is aggressive communication style, and then on the 3rd we have passive aggressive communication style, and the 4th one is assertive communication style. Now what is passive communication style? The passive communication style, the people who have passive communication style, they speak very little. That is one point. Or they, in other words, we can say that they communicate very little. Fine. And they ask very few questions. Okay, start imagining one of your class fellows who does not speak a lot and he does not ask so many questions, and he is somebody who internalize his discomfort. So you may not target anybody, it's just for the sake of example, of course. So a person who has got passive communication style, he would internalize his discomfort. I mean, we all have certain discomforts. For example, if we are sitting in a kind of environment, so we do not like it, we have certain problem with that setting or environment. So there are people who would speak about that I don't like this, please make it different or make it settled. But the people who have passive communication style, they do not speak about it, they would internalize. जैसे हम कहते हैं ना कि अंदर ही अंदर से बुरा समझना, internally think that fine, this is bad, but they would not express their opinion. Then such people have low self-esteem. They are not very confident. So you can say that when they do not ask a lot of questions, they do not speak, or they do not speak about the discomfort. So it can be the reason of low self-confidence, low self-esteem, and they basically struggle to identify their own needs. I mean, when they want something, when they require something, we all have some needs. As I said, when we were talking about the rights and responsibilities, then I told you that there is one type of need is that you can ask for what you need, you can identify your needs. But a person who has got passive style, he is unable to not only identify his needs, but even if he identifies them, he is not able to talk about that, and he avoids meeting them directly. I mean, I'm talking about the needs. So he avoids meeting those needs directly. So this was about passive style. Now we move to aggressive style. So what is aggressive style, which is quite opposite to the passive style? In aggressive style, a person basically wants to manipulate the situation, and he has basically a very strong desire to control the situation. Fine. Now what is manipulating the situation is that he would like to manipulate, to shape the environment in his own style, in his own way. What he requires, he would like to do that. The second thing is that he want to intimidate employees into avoiding future mistakes. Now his intention is that fine, I will reprimand them, मैं उनको झिड़कूंगा, मैं उनको सख्त रवैया जो है करूँगा. I will use very harsh style. I will practice harsh behavior, strong behavior, so that they won't commit such mistakes in future. So this is the intention behind a person who has got very aggressive style. Now what are other characteristics of this aggressive style is that people with having aggressive style, they often disrespect others, they often hurt others. Fine. I mean, they want something from them, they want, say, a project to be completed, or a teacher, he wants his students to complete their task or lesson. So in order to complete their target or lesson, he would use his aggressive style. He would insult them, he would disrespect them, he would talk in a very harsh tone, and he ultimately, of course, he will hurt them. Now he is thinking that I'm doing right because I want to finish it, I want to complete it, and without disrespecting them, without having a harsh tone, they won't do it. So, but of course, it definitely has got bad impact. So a person like this is said to be somebody who may be unable to process his communication in a better way. He has some sense of inadequacy in his personality. He's not capable. I mean, it is said that a teacher who reprimand a lot his students or he punish his students so often, it means he does not have the capability to teach his students without those punishments. So it is a kind of inability, ineffectiveness in his personality. And of course, he is a kind of person who has got lack of empathy, means he cannot identify the feelings of others. So now we have the third communication style, which is a combo of passive and aggressive, and we will call it passive aggressive style. With the name, we can understand that this kind of person would display sometimes as a passive person, passive style he would practice, and sometimes he would use aggressive style. Now this kind of person thinks that he is very smart because he is trying to manipulate and react to the situation according to the situation. Now this is his belief that sometimes he will remain passive and sometimes he will remain aggressive. This is a kind of style that he has. But what does he exactly do? That sometimes he avoids direct confrontation. Now what is direct confrontation is which is happening in aggressive style, remember. What is happening in aggressive style, which is direct confrontation, that the person is actually talking directly on the face of his employees or students, and he is disrespecting them directly. So in that way, he is of course spoiling his relationship as well. A teacher who reprimand his students so often, who disrespect his students so often, I mean, I personally think that students do have their self-respect and teachers tend to respect them. I mean, we always listen that students must respect teachers, but in my opinion, this is my philosophy as a teacher, that a teacher definitely has to respect his students. Same goes for the parents and children, that we always listen that children should respect their parents, but I feel that parents should also respect their children, because if they respect their children or a teacher respect his students, then definitely he will get respect from the students and the father would get respect from the children. So direct confrontation. So in this particular style, a person avoids direct confrontation. And which is basically the style of passiveness, that he avoids direct confrontation. But because it's a combination of passive and aggressive, so he has one of the traits of aggressive style as well. What is that trait? That he attempts to manipulate, the situation. What is manipulating the situation is basically that he wants his way to be practiced in that situation. He is not really willing to ask from others and listen to others what they think about this situation. He thinks that whatever I think is correct, whatever I feel is correct, and this should be implemented. So he would always try to shape and manipulate the situation in his own way. So this is a kind of aggressiveness. So as I said, that this is a combo of aggressive and passive. So in passive aggressive people, such kind of people, they use procrastination. What is procrastination? It's a kind of you can say personality trait, that there are some people who would keep on postponing the situation. Like they do not take the decision on the spot. They would say, okay, fine, I will take decision later. Fine, give some time and I will do it later. If you want to understand the concept of procrastination as a student, so I would explain it very well, that as a student, there are some people who practice procrastination. Like they would say that, okay, fine, we are left with 2 months from exam, and today there is no need to study. We will study it next week. Fine. Then the next week comes and they say that, okay, this week we can play and we can sleep well and we can watch movies, or enough time is left. That personality trait is called procrastination, and of course it never benefits you. So passive aggressive person, they use this procrastination as a technique to avoid the situation, to address the situation on time. They also use forgetfulness, like they would say that, oh, I didn't remember this, I forgot this. This is also a personality trait of such people who have passive aggressive style. And they would also intentional inefficiency. That is very interesting thing, that they would sometimes they would say that I don't know about it, or maybe they would say that I can't say about anything like this. So this is a kind of strategy they are using when they are practicing passive style, because they want to avoid confrontation. For example, imagine there is a meeting going on, and there is somebody in the team, he has done some blunder. So the manager does not want to have a direct confrontation with him, so he would ignore it, ignore that mistake, or maybe he would say that, well, I have no idea about it. So it's a kind of strategy that he is applying to avoid the confrontation, and which is a passive strategy, of course. So what is the impact of this style with your on your team or on your class or students? Of course, that it leads towards politics. Yes, like sometimes there are, let's say there are 10 people who are working in a team. So sometimes he is avoiding confrontation, and sometimes he is aggressive, and sometimes he is passive. So the people who does not like his confrontation, they would definitely have politics behind it. So it really does not help the manager or the teacher to have passive aggressive style. I mean, I'm not just explaining these styles. I want to tell you people that what kind of style would be suited for a better communication. So what is the best style of communication that we can have? So now we move towards the last and fourth and last style, which is called assertive style. As I said, that we would also try to know that what style suits a person best, and it is more effective in when we talk about effective communication. So assertive style is the style which is the most effective style. So we will try to know what is assertive style and what kind of people they have this assertive style. So first of all, assertive communication style is the healthiest style. Why is it healthiest style? Because it is not passive, it is not aggressive at the same time, and it has totally opposite characteristics to both passive and aggressive. Now assertive individuals, they are direct. What does that mean? It does not mean that they have direct confrontation with other people. It does not mean that they disrespect others. They are so straightforward. I mean, nowadays I hear from different individuals, they say that I am very straightforward, I say it on the face of the people. Now, this is not being direct, this is being disrespectful at some time, because being direct to other individual does not mean that you will say whatever you like, or you will say even if the other individual dislikes it. It's not being direct, it's not being straightforward. When we talk about assertive style, being direct means being polite as well, remember. So yes, you are talking truth, you are discussing everything that you want to discuss, but you are not being disrespectful, you are not being impolite, you are definitely telling what needs to be told, but you are being very polite. They are respectful. The assertive people are respectful, and they aim for win-win situation. What does win-win situation means? Is that they not only want to have their own good self-image, but they definitely give respect to others, and others also like to listen and follow the instruction of such kind of person. So this is a win-win situation. A person is having good image, he is having good relation, his team is respecting him, and the company or the organization or whatever it is growing. So it's a win-win situation. Now, they communicate very confidently, unlike passive style people. The passive style people, they are not very confident, and they, the aggressive people, they are manipulating the situation. So both being passive and being, directly talking to others or manipulating situation, these aspects are absent, of course, in assertive people. They are doing it in a very positive way. Now, what is another aspect of assertive style people is that they take responsibility of their decisions and their choices. I mean, it is not that they implement everything they like, but they take responsibility of that. When they take decision, they would say that this is my decision. If there happens to be something wrong, then I will be responsible for that. So because they are going to be responsible for that, they think it very carefully and they plan it very carefully, whatever they are instructing others. Now, what is the impact of assertive style? Of course, we have already talked about it, that it creates a collaborative, respectful kind of environment, and it helps the kind of managers and teachers to have very strong and very healthy relationships. I mean, I know some of the teachers that they respect their students, they give them enough time to prepare for the things, and they do not keep on disrespecting them just in order to complete the targets. And I have seen that such teachers are really respected, because not only they are doing their task, but they are doing their task in a very respectful and a very humble and a very polite way. So that was all about the styles. I have put a table here. I won't explain it because there are some points which are going to be revised. You can pause this video, you can read. On the left side we have the issues, and on the top side you can see the 4 communication style, which is passive aggressive, passive aggressive, passive aggressive, and assertive. So you can see. So I will explain the only first point. When we talk about self-esteem, so the people who have passive style, they will have a low self-esteem, remember. And if we talk about aggressive, they have a self-centered self-esteem. What does that mean? That they consider everything right, what suits them. So that is the kind of self-esteem in them. When we talk about passive aggressive, so their self-esteem is low, just like the passive people. When we talk about the assertive style people, then their self-esteem is high. So this is the way you will read this table. I have 2 slides on it. You can read this one and the other, of course, this one as well. It will definitely help you solve your questions and understand this question in a very easy way. Now, we move towards the next part of our lecture, which is 7 essential actions for effective communication. I told you in the very beginning of lecture that in this lecture, when we finish it, I hope that you are very much clear about what is communication and what is effective communication and what is the importance of effective communication. So in my opinion, this lecture does not only help you in your exams, it does help you to improve your personality as well. So you need to watch and listen this lecture in this way, so that after finishing this lecture, you not only prepare your questions, but also you improve your personality. So what are these 7 essential actions if you want to have, as an individual, a person to be called as somebody who has effective communication? So number 1, you need to listen carefully and responsively. Responsively means that if you are listening to other, you need to respond as well. I mean, sometimes we are listening to other, but we are not responding. But now responding does not mean that you will always respond with your words, yes or no or something like that. But it is something that you can also respond in your gestures. If somebody is talking to you, I remember that when I was talking to somebody and the other person on telephone, for example, on phone call, so the other person won't speak. So I would say that please come on, at least say, okay, fine, So this is responsively. So you need to listen carefully and responsively. The second point is that you need to explain your intent and invite consent. That means that when you are going to speak, you need to tell others that what you are trying to say. What is your intention behind all this? For example, my intention right now is to explain the concept so that it should help you in your exams and it should help you improve your personality. Now, what is this? I have told you my intent of communication, and I need to invite consent as well. In some situations, we need to know that what are the limitations for our listeners, for our audience. So we need to know. We can't really, compel them to respond the way we want. So we need to respect their limits as well, that there can be some limits the way they can respond. Fine. The third point is you need to express yourself clearly and completely. Now we will explain this clearly and completely in the later part, or maybe the last part of this lecture, when we talk about the 7 C's, of course. But here this is a part and we are explaining it, that you need to be very clear and you need to talk completely. The communication which does not have complete information, it will never have a positive effect on your communication. Then you need to translate complaints into requests. Very important, very important. Now we all have, as a student, as a community member, as a family member, we all have some complaints to others. For example, a student may have a complaint to a teacher. Maybe he does not like his teaching style. Maybe he does not like the way he speak. Fine. Maybe he does not like the way he assess his tests. Fine. These are a kind of complaints that a person can have from other teacher. Now, what is the best way to translate? Translate means ke you speak up. Okay? So the best way is not to say to the teacher that, teacher, I don't like your teaching style. Now this is a complaint. So it would be better if you translate this complaint style into a kind of request. For example, this thing can be said that, sir, I think it would be better if you teach like this, because unfortunately I am not able to understand that way. Now this is a very polite way to, it's a kind of request now. It's not a complaint, straightforward complaint. Fine. Acha, one more example, that if, let's say, teacher gave you a test and you appeared in the test and the teacher marked, and you don't really agree with the marks that you got. Fine. The one way is to complain it directly. You will say that, teacher, how can you give me this low mark? Fine, this is one of the ways. But the other way would be that, teacher, can you please explain that why did I get less marks? Now this is a kind of request. So this is, what are we studying? Remember that we are studying that what are the at least seven essential actions to make your communication effective communication. So next we have ask open-ended questions. Always, if you want to have better communication with others, do not ask questions which are close-ended questions. Now, what are close-ended questions? Close-ended questions are something that which do not demand full-fledged opinion from others. They are kind of questions which demands yes and no. Achha, very interesting. I can say that last night I had a discussion with somebody and he was asking some questions, and I said that, why are you asking such questions which demand only yes and no? No, I must be able to express my opinion in detail. I can't respond you in yes and no. So some of the people who are not very good at communication, they ask such questions which demands only yes and no because it satisfies their soul. So do not ask questions which demand only yes and no. I mean, I'm talking about the general communication with other people. Fine. Try to give them leverage so that they can explain their opinion, they can explain their point in a detailed way, rather than you demand that, no, just answer me in yes and no. So if you want to have effective communication, you must not ask close-ended questions. Then express appreciation regularly. I mean, if you are a teacher, so you need to express appreciation for the students. Humans are every human would like to be appreciated. If you do good work, you must be appreciated. I mean, if you appreciate others, basically you are motivating others. And you are not only motivating others, but you are also maybe, in future, the people would appreciate you as well. So if you do not appreciate others, people won't appreciate you. And that's bad. So if you keep on appreciating your team members, your students, your colleagues, your family members, for example, a father, if he does not appreciate his children, they won't be motivated to do good things. Anyhow, the 7th point is that practice communication skills daily. Very important. Now, I said it earlier in the class, in this lecture, that communication is a proper skill. Like singing is a skill, driving is a skill, photography is a skill. So, in the same manner, communication is also a skill. Somebody who is a singer, he will have to do a lot of practice. In Urdu, we say riyaz. So, there are very famous singers like Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, and currently we have lots of names. So, if you ask from them that how much do you practice this listening, so they would tell you that they practice for hours and hours and hours and days and weeks for a program. So it is very important to keep practicing your communication. So if you can, when you are listening to me and when you are reading all this, slides, you should practice all these points so that you become a very good, effective communicator. Now we move towards the do's of effective communication and don'ts of communication. That means that what need to be done. Fine, we did study that what are the 7 essential actions, but here we will try to understand in a very different way. Now this is you can say that this is a kind of strategy to make it more clearer for you guys to understand what is the importance of effective communication and how you can have more effective communication. So first of all, we will read what are the do's, means what you need to do, and the don'ts, what you shouldn't do. So the do's are that first of all, analyze the issue thoroughly before developing a plan. That means that, for example, take my lecture as a issue, that this is an issue. Again, the word issue should not mislead you, that the way I explained conflict. Now, conflict should not always be something negative, because whenever we listen the word conflict or issue, we start thinking that there must be something negative. No, it's not always negative, fine. So, issue can be something like I wanted to deliver a lecture. Now, this is an issue, by the way, fine. So, basically, before I would come here and record my lecture, I thoroughly analyzed it, and then I developed the plan, and then I am delivering this lecture. So that's why my communication seems to be better. If I couldn't have planned it better, if I wouldn't thoroughly analyze it, then I won't be able to record it in a perfect way. So it's very important. The second is identify the role of communication early on. I mean, most of the people, they talk to different people without knowing that what is the role of communication. If they come to know that communication is very important in their life and they need to have a better communication, and somebody teach them that what is the role of communication, then I personally feel that there won't be less people who would disrespect others. There will be less people who would have ineffective communication, because every single person in this world want to be appreciated. So if he knows the importance of communication, then definitely he would communicate in a better way. So role of communication, knowing the role of communication is very, very important. The third is know your target groups and stakeholders. Now, who are the target groups and who are the stakeholders? For me, right now for this lecture, my target groups are the students, number one, and the students of first semester, I can say, or the early semesters. Fine. So because now I know that these are my target groups, then I will definitely speak like this. Honestly, I'm trying to speak very slow, and I'm trying to speak, use very simple words. I can speak very fast in English language. I have been speaking English language for almost 19 years now. I'm a spoken English teacher, I'm an IELTS teacher, so I can speak very fast, I can speak very fluent. But because I knew that my students are coming after doing only intermediate, and they would be coming from maybe government colleges, and there is a possibility that they won't be able to understand difficult level of English or very fast English speaking. So that's why I knew my target groups, and that is why I am trying to be very slow, and I'm trying to use my words, simple words. And that is the importance that I might have been successful, I hope. Now, who are the stakeholders? Now, stakeholders in this case is not only the students, but of course the English department, the university as a whole. And of course, the people around me right now, there are 3 to 4 people who are, judging me. There is somebody who is holding the camera and other stuff. So I really thank them as well, by the way. So they are also the stakeholders. So I have to follow their instruction. That's why I have been static for almost 1.5 hours in front of you, because they want their frame in the camera to be correct. So I know all the stakeholders, and that's why I'm following all those things. So that is why my communication can be better. The fourth point is define communication target using SMART goals. Now, what is SMART? SMART here means the S goes for specific, M goes for measurable, A goes for acceptable, R goes for realistic, and T goes for time related. So your communication target should be specific, your communication target should be measurable, fine, it should be acceptable to others, and it should be realistic. Superficial nahi hona chahiye, it should be realistic, and it should be time related. As I have been told that you need to finish your lecture within almost 90 minutes, not more than that. Fine. So I know that there is a time limit, and I have to finish it within 90 minutes. So this is the target that I'm following. Fine. Now the fifth point is that you need to identify your partners and intermediaries for communication. Now this point is quite similar to knowing your stakeholders and knowing your target groups. Of course, you need to identify your partner. Now here I would say that if you are communicating with somebody, so you need to talk, you need to analyze his personality. What kind of person he is that I'm talking to? Is that type of person who is quite frank, who enjoys jokes? I have seen in my life that there are some people who do not like jokes. They do not like to be so frank. So I can't be frank with them. So it is very important to know that who is my partner in communication. And intermediaries means that who are the people who are involved in this kind of discussion. For example, here the discussion, the communication between myself and you people, the intermediaries are these people who are the media people, the department, and the university administration. So I need to know if I want to have effective communication. Next is always pre-test your message. That means that if you want to, it's a kind of thing that we have been listening to, think before you speak. Okay? Before you want to express something, you need to think it. That means actually you need to plan it. So here in this kind of lecture, I read it very carefully. I give some examples, and I explain it to myself first of all, and then I deliver this lecture. It's not like that randomly I'm coming here and I'm explaining everything. So it's quite, I have tested it before I deliver this. The seventh one is evaluate results to assess effectiveness. It is very important. If you are a speaker and you are moving towards some audience, you have to speak for 10 minutes. So you need to think first of all that what I am going to say, what would be the result of that? What what effects can be of my speech on the people who are listening to me. So you need to evaluate the results so that if there is something wrong, you need to shape it, you need to reshape your message. The eighth point is that you need to define medium for the message. What is the medium? Now medium is basically I'm sorry, that you need to the medium here, for example, right now is the camera. You are watching it on some kind of website or internet, using internet. So I know the medium, and that is why I'm following the instruction of that medium. So there can be different mediums, of course. A medium can be a radio, a television, a live call, or it can be a YouTube video. So whenever we know the medium, then of course we understand the importance of that as well. And of course medium has the language as well, the way you speak, everything includes in that. Then comes the budget. You need to know the budget as well. Now this budget is not concerned with somebody who is involved in simple interpersonal communication. For example, there are two people who are talking to each other, of course budget is not involved. But when you are delivering a speech as a manager, for example, in a business communication, for example, then definitely whatever you are saying should be synonymous with the budgets you have for that kind of project that you are speaking with others. And the 10th one is think creatively. So if you want to have better communication, you need to be creative. You need to not only creative in your speech, the way the words you use, but also in your ideas. Now we move towards what are the don'ts. Means the thing that you shouldn't do if you want to have your good communication. The first don't is that don't only focus on sending, make sure to listen. What does that mean? What does that mean? That right now I am sending this message from my side to you. So if I am totally focused that how is my voice quality, how are my body gesture, and how I am speaking, how is my English language skill, it is only focus on sending. No, it shouldn't be done. The focus should also be that what other person is trying to say or think about me, maybe. Fine. So say if I am talking to somebody, I shouldn't only focus on how I am speaking. I should also listen to him and what he wants to listen to me. Fine. So this is very important. The second point is don't rush to select a communication method before planning. First of all, you need to plan what you are going to say, and then you can talk about what communication method can be okay for that. So planning comes first, and how would you deliver that message comes second. And in planning, it's a broader term. In planning, you need to plan everything, your project, maybe what will you say, in what manner will you say, what is the time limit, and everything. So planning includes everything. So most of the people, they rush towards the communication method. Should I use lecture method? Should I use presentation? So it's like going with the proper order. So first of all, you need to plan it. The third thing is do not overemphasize strategy at the expense of execution. Fine. So sometimes we are very much concerned about strategy, that how we will deliver our lecture. It is very much related to the second point, that how we will deliver our message to others. We are very much overemphasizing about the strategies that we will do. So the main focus shouldn't be all the time about the strategy. It should definitely you should also consider the execution. By execution, it means that how you will talk to others and how you will get the results of that communication. And the fourth point is do not ignore communication barriers. Whenever somebody is talking to others, there might be some communication barriers. Imagine a very strange situation. For example, you are sitting in a place which is very crowded. Lots of people are there and they are talking to each other. Then you should realize that this is a kind of place where lots of people are talking. So here I need to speak a bit higher. Now this is what? This is after analyzing the communication barrier. Barrier means कि something that is stopping you from a normal communication. एक रुकावट है ऐसी. So when lots of people are there, you need to speak a bit higher. Fine. Another situation where, for example, you are in a masjid, and in masjid, of course, you cannot speak louder. So you need to understand that I can't speak louder. So it's a kind of communication barrier. So here you will, of course, manage your voice so that it shouldn't be higher. So there are lots of other barriers. There are some psychological barriers, there are some physical barriers. So this is not our topic here, but you can search it from somewhere else at what are the communication barriers. So you need to be very much concerned about the communication barriers. Then comes the fifth point, which is do not overestimate communication power to change perceptions. Remember, your communication can change perceptions. There was some saying, and it says that a teacher has got, especially a teacher or a good communicator has got such power that he can teach, he can make Muslims while teaching Bible, and he can make Christians while teaching Quran. I mean, this is the power of communication, that you are reading Quran, but you are so much powerful in your communication that while reciting Quran, you make others Christians. I mean, it's just an example. So your communication does have a huge power, and you should realize it. But you shouldn't overestimate it. I mean, you should realize it, but you shouldn't overestimate it. What does that mean? That you shouldn't think that whatever I will say, that will change everything the way I want. So of course there are people who won't accept your points, you won't align with your strategy or your vision or your ideology. So these are the don'ts, of course. And we have now 4 skills in communication. I will briefly explain those 4 skills, and definitely we will then move towards the last part of our lecture. So the first skill that we have, that is listening. I said you in the very beginning of the lecture that usually people think about speaking, that this is the skill. But remember, there are basically, for communication, there are 4 skills, that is listening, speaking, reading and writing. In order to become a very good communicator, in order to have effective communication, you must have all these 4 skills. Of course, the speaking skill is something which is more prominent, which is more active, and listening and reading are called passive skills, and writing and speaking are called active skills. But definitely all the skills combined and make you an effective communicator. So listening, we all know that by listening, it's not something that we are listening to say music and we are enjoying it. By listening is understanding it, comprehending the message. I mean, somebody is saying, for example, you're listening to me right now. Now, the one point is, maybe you say that, oh, this person speaks English in a very nice way. Somebody would listen to me in this perspective. The other is not really concerned about my pronunciation and my accent. He is not really concerned about that. He would say that I want to know what he is explaining. So that is another type of listening. So it is, in listening, we shouldn't make it very simple. Listening is very important. We need to comprehend the message thoroughly. And in listening, of course, there are certain skills that we can't really talk in detail here, because this is one of the smaller part of my lecture. And then we have speaking. In speaking, of course, we have talked a lot. In the whole lecture, we have more examples from speaking. So speaking is, of course, one of the skills that a person can have, and that one of the very blessed skills. And I say that if somebody has got very good speaking, and again, some people think that speaking a language is speaking. No, it's not like that. Speaking is not just uttering some words. Please do not consider it. Yes, uttering words is speaking, but genuine speaking is speaking with an assertive style. I mean, imagine a person is speaking with aggressive style. We don't like him because he is disrespectful and he is harsh. So we don't like it. Even that is speaking. But when we talk about speaking skill, it has to be effective speaking and assertive style speaking, of course. Then we have reading. Reading is a passive skill, and of course it is said that the more you read, the better you write. The more you listen, the better you speak. That means if you want to improve your speaking, then you need to be a very good listener. If you are a good listener, then you are a good speaker. Some people say that I am a very good speaker, but I am not a good listener. Let me tell you, that person is not even a good speaker because he's not a good listener. So you got to have good listening in order to become good speaker. And you got to have good reading comprehension. So in reading, we have different skills like skimming, scanning, fast reading, reading between the lines and all that. So same like listening, reading is very important, because if you are just reading it with a very fast speed and without understanding the message, because remember, in reading, even a single comma can change the message. There is a very famous example in Urdu. I will say it in Urdu and I will explain it in English as well, that roko, mat jane do. So here in this sentence we have a comma after roko, but then there is a phrase roko mat jane do. So here the comma is after roko mat. So reading has got very important, and that applies on the writing as well, the one who is writing it, because we consider the comma is a very simple thing and it may not change the meaning, but it does change the meaning. So in English, if we say that stop, don't allow him to go. So this is kind of comma that is coming right after stop. But if we change the position of the comma, it can definitely change the meaning. So it applies to reading as well, and it applies to writing as well. So remember, reading is not just reading a passage. So reading is a proper skill. Like I would explain it in one more example, that for example, there are people, if they read a paragraph, for example, there is a possibility that in that paragraph there are 7 to 8 words which they don't know the meaning of those words. They might have read it for the first time in their life, but even then their scanning or skimming skill is that good that they do not need to look into the dictionary for those words, the meanings of those words, and they understand the major message in that paragraph. So this is a kind of skill you need to understand. So I hope that this brief introduction gives you enough knowledge about these 4 skills. And now in the last part of our lecture, we will talk about the application of 7 C's, the very famous 7 C's. I mean, these are kind of, you can say, skills of communication which all start with the C letter. So first of all, we have clarity, which starts with C. Here clarity means that you need to send your message in a very clear way. It shouldn't be ambiguous. Now remember the first activity, the very first activity in the beginning of this lecture, when I talked about a social media post. So that actually was not only incomplete, but it was unclear as well, remember. So I have an example here as well on the screen. You can see that you need to send daily progress updates by email at 5 p.m. Now it not only talks about the daily update, it also talks about how you will send by email, not through WhatsApp. And at what time will you send it to me? 5 p.m. I mean, if he wouldn't have mentioned this 5 p.m., then he would have gotten these updates random throughout 24 hours. There might be somebody who would be sending at 5 p.m., some would send at 6 p.m., some would send at midnight, but he has fixed it and make it very clear that you need to send the reports at 5 p.m. Otherwise, if he would have said a message like keep me updated. So now this is unclear message. It does not really tell that do the people who are working under his leadership need to update him orally, or they need to message him, or they need to provide him on a printed paper. They don't know it, and they have no idea that at what time he requires this update. So keep me updated is a kind of message which is unclear. So clarity should be there. The second C is called conciseness. I mean, it is not that in order to make things clear you write so many words and longer sentences. So it's not like that. It should be concise. That means brief but clear. It's not like while being so brief you for example, keep me updated is brief, but it is unclear as well. So you need to be brief, but at the same time you have to be clear and complete as well. So in conciseness, there can be a message, for example, all employees must submit their time sheets by 5 p.m. on Fridays. Now he has talked in a very brief way, but he has given it a clear message to everybody. Even though it's brief, but it has got a complete and clear message. The third C is concreteness. By concreteness, it means that it shouldn't be superficial. It should have proper data. It should have maybe stats, numbers in it. For example, there is a statement which says that you achieved 15% above your sales target this quarter. Now the employee is very clear that his achievement is 15% higher, but if he would have said it that you did well, you did wonderful job, the employee wouldn't know that what is the level of his success. But in the message, you achieved 15% above your sales target. He is very clear that I am 15% above my target, and next time I need to do more for say 30% or 50% more than my target. So it has to be concrete. So as I said, in concreteness, usually we use some data, some digits, some numbers. Then we have correctness. By correctness, we mean the message should be correct. There shouldn't be any error. It can have a grammatical error, but here grammatical error is not that important, but the facts are very important. For example, as the message says, the annual meeting will take place on April 5th at 10 a.m. So if, for example, by mistake he put an extra 1, so it can become April 15th, and of course it won't be correct. So the message has to be corrected. The fifth point is coherence. Coherence means that you must have connection. You must have, your message should be connected. For example, my lecture is, developing from the phase 1 to second to third to fourth, and I have always tried in my whole lecture to keep connected to the rest of the lectures. Means in the beginning I said that I will explain it later, and in the later part I said that remember I explained that in the beginning part. So I am connecting all the things, so there is a coherence in my message. And the sixth point is completeness. Now by completeness means that your message should not miss the important information. For example, please complete the report on client feedback by next Tuesday and submit it via email to the marketing department. Now it gives all necessary information. Remember, it is very tricky that in order to apply 7 C's in your message, you need to be careful about all the 7 points. For example, while following the completeness, you shouldn't do it in extensive way. I mean, you shouldn't write or instruct extensive details, because you have to follow the rule of brevity, the conciseness as well. So if you are following completeness, then conciseness should also be there. And at the end we have application of courtesy. That is, courtesy means whenever you are talking to somebody or communicating to somebody, you need to follow the rule of courtesy. That is being polite, the way I explained that in rather than going for the complaints, you need to translate into requests, or in a polite manner or in a suggestive manner you can talk. So I have an example. For example, there is a one way to respond to bad performance. For example, you didn't finish the report. This is one way. The other way is that I noticed the report is still in progress. Is there anything you need to help complete it? So this is basically a suggestive way, a polite way, a courteous way to do it. So this is totally end to this lecture. I hope you understand it and you listen to it carefully. I have put some suggested books. You can of course consult these books and make my lecture in a more progressive and a better way. Thank you very much for watching and listening to this lecture. Allah Hafiz.